Hello, fellow fight fans, and welcome to the Untitled Fightcast number 013. And how fitting that this episode be an unlucky number because there isn't any good news this week. So wrap up, lock in, and let's get it started. So, with basically nothing happening in combat news recently, Jon Jones, the supposed GOAT, has kindly given us something to talk about. And it seems that the unbeatable Jon Jones can, in fact, be defeated, but only by his own damn self. Last Thursday, on March 26th, Jon got arrested for aggravated DWI, negligent use of a deadly weapon, allegedly, having an open container of alcohol in the car, and no proof of insurance. Body cam footage was released, showing Jones being stopped, asked if he was driving previously and if he had been drinking earlier, and then failing a field sobriety test, although there is a good argument, in all fairness, that some of those tests are actually hard to do sober. During the field sobriety test, he was saying things like,
"But my memory is always my short-term memory is really bad."
Okay.
People don't know that about me, but that's really bad. It's really bad.
Okay.
And
my daughter's dyslexic.
As if these excuses would get him out of trouble. He was then put under arrest, and Jon got all cryy and whatnot. This after lying to the police about what he drank, how much he drank, and also saying that he didn't fire off his gun, even though the police had originally even found Jon in his car because they were responding to gunshots that they heard, later found a shell that matched his firearm. I mean, it's not looking good for Jon so far. And since not only MMA news, but sports news in general is just a barren wasteland, man, this is the worst time for this to happen to Jones because the media was all over this. And while I do agree with the overall consensus of Jon needs help, I couldn't help but notice that everyone was being super nice about the whole thing. Many people from the media saying something to the effect of, "Well, thankfully no one got hurt." Yes, congrats, Jon. You got away with doing something dumb yet again and not having a total tragedy befall upon you or someone else. But how long until something does? Let's quickly recap Jon's past and the troubles he's had. The first time he got in trouble while being in the UFC, he wrapped his car around the pole with two girls in the back. He very easily could have killed them or himself. And the second time, he hit a goddamn pregnant woman and then ran away from the scene because he had drugs and paraphernalia in his car. So fuck yeah, Jon Jones has a substance abuse problem due to something else in his life going on in his brain, and he's beyond lucky that he hasn't hurt someone any worse than he already has or done irreparable damage to someone. And yeah, he needs help. But these are such easily avoidable situations that Jones can just not even get into. But he willingly puts himself into these situations. And much more importantly, he's putting the safety and lives of others into these easily avoidable situations as well. Now, the drunk driving is absolutely disgusting, and I'm surprised he's gotten away with it for so long because let's be honest, this time he got caught. But if we're being realistic, there's two scenarios we're looking at here. One, this is the first time Jon has done anything like this since the last time he got caught, and he happened to get caught this first time that he did it. Or two, which is much more likely, is that he has continued to do stuff like this, which has increased his odds of getting caught and finally got nabbed this time, and I'm willing to bet the bank on that one. But in a court of law, you can't speculate, you have to go on the evidence, so we're just going to talk about this one time. What seriously pisses me off though, not just about the situation, but about the media's coverage on this, is that they're just casually grazing over the fact that he allegedly was firing off his gun just kind of willy-nilly. When you fire a gun off in the air, and whether it was in the air or just at the ground, we're not sure, but if it was in the air, spoiler fucking alert, bullet has to come back down somewhere. And do you know how many people have just been walking the street and got hit by stray bullets? And I'm not talking about stray bullets that, are moving horizontally because someone was shooting at someone and missed. I'm talking about the ones that were shot off in the air. Now, in the middle of a pandemic outbreak, there's not a lot of people on the street. Maybe that's why Jon thought it was safe to do that. But there are numerous documented cases of people just chilling inside their home and getting off by stray bullets that came through their window. A good number of those times happen to be children. And speaking of children, this is childlike, obscene behavior. I mean, Luke Thomas, one of my favorite MMA media members, was so lenient on this. Meanwhile, he's halfway crucifying Dana White for trying to put on shows in the midst of this pandemic. And yeah, Dana isn't doing the right thing, and whether it's for the right or wrong reasons, that's up for debate. But in Jon's case, there is no good reason, not one single excuse for him to be popping shots into the air as if it's something safe to do. Luke referred to this and the drunk driving as Jon having poor risk management. Come on, Luke. You obviously don't want to kick a guy while he's down, and I genuinely respect that. But let's call this what it is. It's reckless, it's stupid, and it's straight up abhorrent behaviors that could end up with the life of someone just casually going about their day being taken or irreversibly changed. And it's not like he's out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and just like doing this in the desert. On the body cam footage, he gets picked up in the middle of a residential or business area. What the actual fuck, Jon? And yes, I agree, Jon needs help for sure, but him having some type of mental illness, whether it's depression, anxiety, addiction, or otherwise, is no excuse for him to not have actual consequences for his actions. Guess what? Every person that's ever shot up a school had a mental illness. Did they get off easy if they were caught? Fuck no. And yes, that is an even crazier situation, but my point is that people do things, dumb things, dangerous things, for whatever the reason is. The reason doesn't matter. You do things and there are consequences. That's how this is supposed to go. But how did it go? Let's go over the consequences for Mr. Jon Jones. Yesterday, on March 31st, Jon pleaded guilty to driving while intoxicated and had all the other charges dropped, which we'll get back to in a second. So what can Jon Jones look forward to in his near future? Well, for one, Jon of course won't serve any jail time, because why would we put a famous person in jail when many others get put in jail for many lesser offenses? Sometimes on their first offense. Meanwhile, this is Jon's third or fourth time in the courtroom. Number two, Jon will be placed on 1 year supervised probation, which, by the way, he has broken probation rules prior to this, and he must serve 96 hours, 4 days, in a community custody program, which is basically just house arrest. And my God, it's not like we're in the middle of a quarantine anyways. Oh my goodness, what a terrible punishment to have to stay home with your wife and kids, which is what you were supposed to be doing anyways. He will have to wear an ankle bracelet, which I mean might be embarrassing, especially if he has to, explain it to his daughters. But again, this isn't the biggest deal ever. Big fucking whoop. He has to do 48 hours of community service. Okay. He has to pay a $500 fine, and he's literally a millionaire. So, wow, I'm sure that one hurt. And the one thing that might actually possibly be helpful for Jon in this situation is that he has to take part in a 90-day outpatient treatment program, which hopefully actually helps with his addiction problem. That being said, the program will be done online because of the coronavirus situation, which I get. But that might change the effectiveness of the program and make it less impactful. Number 6, Jon can still drive, but he has to have an ignition interlock device installed in his car, which is that thing that they put in cars where you have to take and pass a breathalyzer test before the car will actually start. That being said, in the articles that I've read so far, I haven't heard any rules about him driving someone else's car, say if he's, maybe out with friends, maybe out at a bar. And lastly, he could possibly still serve at least 90 days in jail, which I personally think might be the kick in the ass that Jon needs. Again, he needs help. Rehab is important, and I'm not trying to kick someone while they're down. But without waiting until someone else or himself gets seriously hurt, Jon clearly needs some sort of shock to his system. And if anything, this entire situation in itself might not even be a shock to him, considering he's been here before. This is becoming normal for Jon. All that being said, and with this plea deal, the other 3 charges get dropped. Driving with an open bottle, not having insurance, which, okay, whatever. But the fact that negligent use of a firearm would get dropped when someone is shooting off bullets in an area where people are, I mean, this is disgusting. Now, a judge hasn't actually officially approved this plea deal, so really anything could still be on the table, I suppose, and I really think that if the plea deal goes through, that it's still going too easy on Jon. I've said it 3 or 4 times now, yes, he needs help, but if there aren't consequences to his actions, whatever help he might get might just not sink in. And how many times is something going to happen before someone else gets hurt? If you want to fuck up your own life, go right ahead. But if you end up killing someone or crippling them or whatever because he did something stupid that was easily avoidable, you can't say sorry for that. You can't do enough community service to make up for that. I mean, come on. Jon Jones has gone on record saying that he accepts his past, and that is not pretty, but that he wants to put it behind him and leave his overall legacy that of something to be proud of. He says that he's a man of God, that he wants to be a good father and husband. Well, here's some news for you, Jon. Wanting to do something and actually doing it are 2 vastly different things. And just what did Jones have to say about his most recent incident? He said, "I just got stir crazy and I wanted to have a drive. This is my first drive in 2 weeks." Wow, Jon. It's not like there's this thing called self-control. You know, something as a father, you should probably be setting a good example for your daughters. Something I've been telling myself recently is that it doesn't matter what I want, it's about what I need. I don't care if he wanted to go for a drive. And to be fair, when he decided that he wanted to go for a drive, I'm willing to bet he had already been drinking, which is why he made that dumb, stupid fucking decision. He also said, "While we all work to understand and cope with stress and uncertainties surrounding the current state of our world, I want to express how truly disappointed I am that I have become the source of a negative headline again, especially during these trying times. I am disappointed for letting down the people I care about the most, my family, my friends, and my fans. I accept full responsibility for my actions, and I know I have some personal work to do which involves the unhealthy relationship I have with alcohol." But guess what? In an interview back in November of 2018 with Ariel Helwani, Jon said that he loved going to rehab and that he would go back every single summer. And then, in his latest interview with Helwani back in January, he said not only was he still drinking leading up to the fight because he has his quote-unquote traditions, but that he also didn't go back to rehab because he just felt that he didn't need it. Again, also saying that he wanted to show the world he was a changed man. So it's very easy for Jon to say things and go back on his word. And when he says these things, maybe he truly believes them, but whether or not he can actually follow through is still yet to be seen. He obviously needs some help, and hopefully this 90-day online treatment thing will work, but I just don't have high hopes for that. It's important to actually be in an environment and around people that want to help you. And all of that being said, if the judge does accept this plea deal, which I don't think they should, he could spend up to a year in jail if he doesn't abide by every single rule, which Jon has had a problem with in the past, so we will see. But take it from someone who has had many bad habits, someone who has had a substance abuse problem with both weed and alcohol, someone who saw a history of abuse in his family. Spoiler alert, it's me. Change is possible. It just takes a lot of hard work and a lot of patience, and it takes a long time. And Jon Jones is a fucking UFC fighter, for crying out loud. Something being difficult and taking time should be the last excuse for him to not do the things that he needs to do. But Big Jon said it best.
You created this for no reason. Mm-hmm. You're better than this. When you do the fight game, you show how good you are. You are the yin and yang when it comes to your life and your fight ability. You know, you're a world champion, okay, in the cage. Outside of the cage, you're a absolute loser. You just lose at life because Being a champion is someone like guys that do things right, the George St. Pierre's. Now, that doesn't mean that George can't make a mistake.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that he can't do something that someone goes, oh, that was wrong. Of course he can. He's human. But he learns from the mistake and tries to make himself a better person off of it. And when you continuously put yourself in a position where you're showing everyone, you actually think you're just better. You actually think that you can do whatever you want. You actually show that you don't care.
He really would rather try to just get away with things and act like he's better than others instead of bettering himself, and that's just sad. And if there aren't proper repercussions for his actions, he's going to continue to think that he's better than everyone else because someone who wasn't famous, someone who didn't have an expensive lawyer, would not have gotten away with this. But who knows? I'm an open-minded person. Maybe things will actually change. Fingers crossed, and all we can do is wait and hope and watch. And just for shits and giggles, here's a clip of Stephen A. Smith recalling Jon Jones's last fight with Dominic Reyes and citing it as being against Anthony Smith.
Not only is he hurting himself, I think that when you look at him in the octagon, I thought that last fight, I think it was against Smith, if I remember correctly.
Like, I get it, Smith and Reyes are both painfully common names, but they're not even close to similar. So with that shit show out of the way, let's talk about Corona again. Yay! One shit show to another because as of Monday morning, Khabib is stuck in Russia, unable to leave, and Tony isn't allowed in Russia, so for the fifth fucking time, this fight is off. Fucking kill me. And Dana White, for some reason, still wants to go through with this card, which I don't get. The whole point of this card was the Khabib and Tony fight. This was the marketing material, and Dana White has gone on record multiple times recently saying that he would do whatever it took to make that fight happen. That fight, not that card. He has barely mentioned the rest of the card. He's been talking about that fight because this is the fifth time it has gotten booked and now canceled. To the point that people in the MMA media were even speculating maybe Dana just puts on this one fight on one night. And yeah, he'd probably try to fill out the rest of the card, but this fight was the most important thing on the card. Now people are talking about Tony and Gaethje, but why? Why is Tony going to fight? Why would this happen? If Tony wins, so many people are going to say, okay, well, you've been training for a fight and Gaethje took it on short notice. So yeah, you won, big deal. And if Gaethje wins, he's going to get a lot of props, but now he's going to be the next in line to fight Khabib, or Conor's going to fight Khabib. But the point is that Tony's not going to fight Khabib if Justin wins. This is one of the most important fights in mixed martial arts history, arguably to decide who is the best lightweight in the UFC of all time. So why are we putting that in jeopardy? Have some motherfucking patience and just put it off one more time. We've been waiting 5 years for this fight. I don't think people are going to complain about waiting a little bit longer because we have to wait. There's no way around it. The fight isn't happening. So don't put the potential of that fight at risk just to have a fight on this card. If we're going to have a headline fight and the card's still going to go on, have it be Conor versus Gaethje. Let's do that. Why is that not coming up? But leave Tony out of it because Khabib's already out of it. So that's the news for this week. Literally none of it was positive, and I try to bring a positive spin to everything. And I guess the only positive thing is that we had something to talk about. Because originally, before the Jon Jones thing, before Khabib went back to Russia, I didn't think I was going to have shit to talk about this week. And it went from about a 2 to 3 minute episode to a much longer one than I thought it would. So thank you for sticking with me through this. I know this entire situation is hard on everyone, so hopefully this doesn't get you down. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay the fuck home if you can, wash your goddamn hands and dry them off properly. I appreciate your support as always. I can't thank y'all enough, and I will talk to y'all in next week's episode of the Untitled Fightcast.